Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something absolutely fascinating. We are taking a real, incredibly complex human criminal conviction, specifically the case of Dr. Chen Jingyuan, and we're putting the whole thing right under the microscope of machine logic. We're going to use four major AI language models, ChatGPT, Copilot, DeepSeek, and Gemini, to objectively analyze the legal reasoning behind this conviction. It's basically a massive stress test, right? Stacking up rigid, structural logic against human judicial interpretation. And let me tell you, the results are completely eye-opening. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our mental map for today. First, we'll look at AI versus a criminal conviction. Then we'll break down the exactly three statutory pillars of this case: the action, the intent, and the consequences, before finally revealing the unanimous AI verdict.
Section 1. AI versus a criminal conviction. Setting the stage.
So we're going to review this case strictly through the neutral, analytical eyes of these four AIs. We're not taking any sides here. We are simply looking at exactly how artificial intelligence processes legal evidence, argumentation, and statutory requirements. Which, of course, brings us to a highly provocative question. Can artificial intelligence logic actually dismantle a complex human criminal conviction? You see, when a human court issues a ruling, it relies on interpretation, precedent, and, sometimes human assumptions. But what happens when you feed that exact same reasoning into machines that only understand strict logical structures? Now, to really get the AI's analysis, we first have to understand the specific charge against Dr. Chen. It translates to picking quarrels and provoking trouble in cyberspace. And according to the AI model's reading of the law, this charge is not just some general penalty for bad behavior online. No, it's a very strict formula. To be convicted, there has to be an action, spreading false information. There has to be intent, meaning doing so intentionally. And there must be consequences. It has to directly result in severe public disorder. If literally any of these three pillars falls, the entire conviction collapses.
Section 2. Element 1. The action. Defining fake information. Let's move to this first pillar and see how it builds.
All right, so starting with this first pillar, right out of the gate, all four AI models threw up a massive red flag regarding how the prosecution handled the evidence. Instead of analyzing specific individual posts, the prosecution took years of varying, totally unrelated online posts, bundled them all together, and labeled that entire package as rumors. Plus, they equated this simple act of just clicking forward directly to fabricating and spreading. The AIs quickly pointed out that failing to verify these posts individually totally abstracts the charge and violates the core principle of legal clarity. What's really interesting about this slide is how DeepSeek and ChatGPT brilliantly picked apart the content of those bundled posts. See, Dr. Chen's posts included art, historical data, personal emotions, and theoretical opinions. The AIs strictly contrasted objective, verifiable facts against art and emotion. Because legally and logically speaking, you just cannot label an emotion or an artistic expression as a fake fact. It's inherently subjective. It literally cannot be proven true or false. Copilot actually hit the nail on the head in its legal analysis here. It stated, only falsifiable factual propositions can constitute false information. Views, emotions, and artistic expressions can never constitute rumors. By packing all these subjective views into a bucket broadly labeled rumors, the AIs noted that the prosecution fundamentally failed to prove that very first statutory pillar. Section 3. Element 2. Subjective intent. The danger of presumption. Okay, so let's play devil's advocate for a second and assume some information actually was false. Did the defendant actually know it was false and spread it with malice? The AI zeroed right in on the judicial reasoning used to prove intent, and guys, they identified a massive logical fallacy. Here is the exact step-by-step logic the court used. Step 1. The defendant has a PhD and a high level of education. Step 2. Therefore, they apparently possess a crystal ball and should know exactly what is true or false on the internet. Step 3. Therefore, by forwarding a post, they intentionally spread rumors with malice. Man, Gemini and Copilot came down incredibly hard on this. They labeled this subjective imputation, which is basically the illegal presumption of guilt based entirely on a person's identity and education rather than on actual objective evidence, like, say, a chat log or a prior warning from a moderator. You simply can't just look at someone's college degree and legally presume they have a malicious state of mind. Now, In his defense, Dr. Chen argued from a place of epistemological skepticism. That's a philosophical stance, meaning human knowledge is just inherently limited. And ChatGPT actually praised this. It called it a highly effective legal deconstruction of knowing intent. The AI noted that, look, high education absolutely does not equal omniscience. But more importantly, under the law, an ordinary citizen has zero legal obligation to act as a universal fact checker for the entire internet before clicking forward. So without direct evidence of actual malice, that second pillar completely crumbles.
Section 4, Element 3, the consequences. Searching for the avalanche.
So, here is the absolute crucial point. Did actual harm occur? As a quick reminder, this specific charge is what legal scholars call a result offense. It's not enough to just do something bad. It has to cause a specific, tangible result. In this case, that result is severe public disorder. This means there needs to be an actual, measurable disruption. We're talking a mass incident, a panic, paralyzed public services that is directly caused by the defendant. Dr. Chen really leaned into his academic background here, utilizing complex systems theory and the CAP theorem to defend himself. He argued a single marginal node in a complex network cannot trigger a macro system avalanche. To put that into layman's terms, an ordinary user with a small following who simply forwards a post is just a tiny ripple, right? It physically lacks the capability to cause a massive societal avalanche. I mean, the AI models were practically cheering for this cross-disciplinary defense. Copilot completely agreed that a small network reach physically prevents systemic chaos. DeepSeek noted that there is a total lack of an inevitable causal link between a few forwarded posts and massive public disorder. And Gemini brilliantly referred to the behavior as mere statistical background noise in the grand chaotic scheme of the internet. But hey, theory aside, let's look at the hard facts. DeepSeek called this next point the ultimate factual falsification of the conviction's consequence pillar. The judicial claim was that severe public disorder occurred, but the empirical reality, the posts in question are actually still online today. They have zero interaction, zero viral spread, and resulted in zero real-world chaos. The consequence was completely 100% hypothetical. And just like that, the third pillar falls. Section 5, the unanimous AI verdict, a consensus on logic. This right here brilliantly illustrates the final consensus. Across all 4 distinct AI models, ChatGPT, Copilot, DeepSeek, and Gemini, it is a clean sweep. For Element 1, the action, they all found structural flaws and logical fallacies in how the evidence was bundled up. For Element 2, intent, they all flagged the illegal presumption of guilt, based simply on identity. And for Element 3, consequences, they unanimously concluded that there was absolutely zero evidence of actual harm. It is a complete unanimous consensus on the structural deficiencies of the proof. So we're going to leave you with this final, kind of provocative thought to chew on. If 4 totally distinct AI models, trained on different architectures and vast amounts of data, can independently and instantly identify the exact same structural, logical gaps in a human conviction, what does that mean for the future of evidence? Will artificial intelligence eventually become the ultimate auditor of human justice, stepping in to keep our logical biases in check? Thank you so much for watching this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the structures around you.